morning everyone. How are you today? I hope you're fine. Okay, welcome to our oral communication class. But before we proceed to our lesson, can we review what we learned last time? Could you still recall what we learned last meeting? Uh-huh. So last meeting, we talked about communication models. And then based on what we learned three communication models. The first one is linear communication model. In linear communication model, communication is only one way, meaning to say the speaker is the only one speaking and communicating. Then there is no reaction or response from the receiver. So we call it linear communication. The second one was the interactive model of communication. So in an interactive model of communication, communication is two-way, meaning to say the speaker is communicating something to the listener, and then there's reaction or response from the receiver. And the third one is transactional model. In transactional model, communication is dynamic. There are times that there are some barriers or noises that come along the way, but those noises and barriers are being overcome, or uh, somehow they are being minimized, or the communication participants can do something in order to make their communication successful despite of some challenges or problems somewhere along the way. Okay? So today, we're going to talk about uh, challenges or barriers in communication. Okay? So before I discuss to you about this topic, let us watch a video or short film. Okay, so while you are watching, class, I want you to watch attentively and try to understand the story behind this video. Okay, here goes. Go. Ayun na.
The friendship. But no one has heard a story quite like this one. Emily and Sam didn't know each other that well, but Emily made sure to express her feelings. Emily was embarrassed, but she was mostly disappointed that she saw Sam's true colors, since he didn't help her up. But there was so much more than she thought. Emily and Sam knew that they were different, but that didn't matter. They only cared about what was in the inside, not the outside. Physiological barriers led to miscommunication.
Okay, there you have it. Did you enjoy the short film? I hope you did enjoy. So, what happened to the story? Okay, did you really appreciate what happened to the two participants in the story? I hope you enjoy it. So, what do you think had been the challenges encountered by the characters? At first, we saw that uh, the woman is having an admiration with the man, and then she did everything in order to be noticed by the man. But at the end, we saw that she realized that the man is incapable of doing that because he is a cripple or a paralyzed. So there is a barrier between the two. At the same time, we also notice that the girl is a mute. She cannot speak. That's why all the efforts that she did were through actions. She didn't say anything because she couldn't do it because she is a mute, no? At the same time, so what she did was she made an effort to be noticed by the man, but like what I said a while ago, the man at the end part uh, did able to help her when she fell down in the bicycle because the man is a cripple. Okay, so physiological barrier had been the obstacle why they didn't able to express what they wanted to express. Okay, so today we're going to talk about different barriers that we encounter when we're communicating with people. So when you say barriers, these are obstacles or the hindrances that makes communication hard or difficult. So today, that is what we're going to talk about. Now, can you think of certain barriers that you encounter that makes your communication a little bit difficult? Okay, so we're going to talk about that. Barriers to communication. The first one is what we call physical barriers. What is meant by physical barriers? Physical barriers are the natural and environmental conditions that hinder correct understanding of the message. So look at this picture. Okay, what did you see? There are people in the market. They are speaking all at the same time. What do you think would happen if, for example, you're communicating with someone and then beside you are also people talking loudly? It's very hard to listen, right? So that is one example of physical barrier. The surroundings which is noisy would really make your communication really hard. Okay, that's the reason why when you are in the market and then you are communicating with someone, the noise around is becoming a barrier to you. Okay, look at this second picture. What do you see? We see here a scenario wherein people are at the middle of the street. Imagine you are communicating with someone wherein you are at the middle of the street. You are hearing different noises like the horns of the vehicles and other noises coming around. So that really makes communication very difficult. Or maybe when you are having communication near the place wherein the place is very smelly or there's a foul odor, so it's really very hard to communicate if you are smelling something awful. Okay, so we call it the physical barrier. Okay, the second one is what we call physiological barriers. What are physiological barriers? These pertain to physical disabilities or handicaps acquired by someone since birth or by any physical illnesses, sickness, or discomforts he experiences during communication activities. Do you remember the short film that you watched a while ago? That's an example of um, physiological barriers. There are physical handicaps experienced by the two that makes communication really very difficult. Or it could be something like when you are having communication with someone wherein you're having some kind of discomfort in your body, maybe you are having stomach cramps or you're having toothache, so it's very hard to speak or to communicate. Or maybe when you go to school or you attended your class and then you had a quarrel with your little brother, and then your mother scolded you because you fight or you fought with your little brother, so you had hard feelings, no? That's why you're having difficulties in listening to your teacher because you're not feeling well. You are emotionally disturbed. So that's another example of physiological barriers, no? You're not feeling well. You're having physical discomfort. Okay? So the next one, look at this one. I want you to look at the pictures, no? Okay? You see there, the kids here are having some physical handicaps. Okay? There's another one. The third one is what we call psychological barriers. What are psychological barriers? Psychological barriers are also called emotional barriers that hinder activities in effective communication, which affect someone when he's experiencing negative thoughts and feelings during communication. For example, um, you are not you are psychologically affected or emotionally disturbed because of some problems in your family, or maybe you had a big problem in love life, right? So oftentimes we cannot really concentrate or focus listening because of some emotional heartache or psychological discomfort, no? Or maybe you are thinking of so many things, you're worried. For example, you are attending your classes and then you are worried about what are you going to do with your assignment in other subject, so you're disturbed, no? So that makes listening to your teacher a little bit hard. Okay? So we call it psychological barriers. Look at this one. Okay. There you have it. Or what do you see in the picture there? In the second picture, you saw that the student is covering his face because he's very shy. He's experiencing stage fright or fear of standing in front of the audience. So that's another example of psychological barriers. So we are not comfortable standing in front of the other people. So we experience some kind of stage fright. And stage fright is another example of psychological barrier. And then the next one is what we call cultural barriers. Okay? So what are cultural barriers? These barriers are encountered by someone when his personal values, beliefs, and traditions are in conflict with others. For example, you encountered someone having another beliefs, no, or maybe religion. For you, having more than one wife is against your belief or religion, but for others it's not, because in their culture it's not okay. So oftentimes you're going to experience difficulties in communicating with that person because in the first place you're not the same in your belief. So there is what we call cultural conflict between you and that person. And sometimes it's really very hard, for example, if what you're saying is different from what others people believe. So conflict in communication happens when you have a different point of view or values with people you're communicating with. Okay? And then, look at this one. We have here people of different nationalities. They have different beliefs and traditions and other things, right? Okay, other values, so that makes really hard to communicate. Okay. And then the next one is what we call linguistic barriers. The word linguistic comes from the word language. So in this particular barrier, uh, someone experience when his language and word meanings are different with others. And because words carry denotative and connotative meanings, they can sometimes cause confusion and misunderstandings. It's not only happening when you are communicating with someone having a different language. Like for example, you're communicating with an American or maybe with an African or British. There are times also that even among Filipinos, linguistic barrier is common. Like for example, when you are speaking with someone from Visayan region or Visayas, from Visayas, there are words in Tagalog that have different meaning to them. Like for example, in Visayas, ambot sa imo, in Tagalog, ewan ko sa'yo, ambot sa imo sounds not really pleasant to the ears, no? But actually, it means ewan ko sa'yo. And another one, in Visayan, the word Tagalog like sandali lang, for them, it means kajut lang, kajut lang, kajut lang. It sounds unpleasant to the ears, but actually it means sandali lang, kajut lang, kajut lang. Okay? So, if you are from Tagalog, you think that that person is having discourtesy in speaking, or is not really the word that he is saying is unpleasant to the ears, or it doesn't sound good, no? Okay, but actually it's what the meaning of that word in their region, no? Okay, so if that happens, sometimes you feel offended because the person is saying something which is unpleasant to the ears, so communication happens. Okay, so we call it linguistic barrier. Okay, that's it, no? So people speaking different languages, having different meanings, so that becomes really a problem. Okay, now of course, we need to do something in order to avoid or minimize communication breakdown if totally cannot be eradicated. So, there are tips given by Broom, Cutlip, and Center in their book Effective Public Relations. They shared the 7C's of effective communication. Which is 7C's. These 7 begins with letter C. Okay? The first C is completeness. Every time we communicate with other people, be sure that your message or information must be complete. Otherwise, if it is lacking in information, that could cause miscommunication or misunderstanding. So every time you are, for example, telling news, make sure that your news is complete to avoid any confusion or maybe misunderstanding on the part of the people listening to you. So completeness. The second one is conciseness. From the word concise. When you say concise, every time you communicate, make it sure that you communicate your information in a shortest possible way, but you do not sacrifice its completeness. In other words, you have to say it short and yet complete. That's the meaning of conciseness. Because the common misconcept of many is that the longer your message is, the more it is complete. Actually, it's not true. You can express your ideas or messages in a shortest possible way, and yet the message is still complete. So we call it conciseness. The third one is consideration. Every time we communicate with people, we need to consider the people we're communicating with. Like for example, if you're communicating with people who are elderly or older people, you have to be very careful because they are already very sensitive. So I think aside from consideration, we need to be tactful in communicating with elderly people. To be tactful means we know how to say the right words at the right person at the right time in order for us not to offend someone. Okay? So if you're speaking with the kids, of course you can use the language of the kids, no? To make your communication really dynamic and for them to enjoy listening to you. Okay? So that is consideration, the third one. The fourth one is concreteness. Every time we say something, we have to be very objective. We need to base our information on facts and figures. We do not say just plain opinion. We need to have basis for us to really make our message convincing or believable. Concreteness. The fifth one is courtesy. Courtesy means politeness. Every time we speak to other people, we must show courtesy or politeness. We must use gentle words. We must avoid words that are very offensive and words that are hurting to other people. It's good to be frank or candid, but we really have to consider using polite words in order to gain respect from the other people. Polite words can make communication really successful. The sixth one is clarity. When you say clarity, from the word clear, clarity means when you're communicating with people, be sure that your message is clear. Meaning to say, there is no room for confusion. If there is a need for you to paraphrase what you're saying, please do it. Because sometimes, if you're using technical words, the people cannot really understand those technical words, and then that causes misunderstanding. So if there's a need for you to define or paraphrase a certain word which is a little bit technical, please do it in order to facilitate better understanding. And the last one, but not the least, is correctness. So when you are communicating with people, be sure that your ideas, your information is correct. We have the saying in social media, think before you click. Nowadays, there are many fake news in social media. We have to verify the correctness of what we're saying, or we have to verify the correctness of what we're listening. Okay, in order to avoid communication breakdown. Okay, did you understand? Okay, now I want you to do this. Okay, activity number 1, identify the kind of communication barrier exemplified by each description. Tell whether it is physiological, psychological, cultural, or linguistic barrier. Write your answers on the space before each number. Then submit it to your Google Classwork, and don't forget to turn in. So we have there 10. Now, I want you to answer that, and please don't forget to turn in. Okay? I will give you until tomorrow to finish doing that. Activity number 1. Okay? So, another one that I want you to do is this one. Okay? So, explain why there is a communication breakdown on the given situations. Again, write your answers on the given sheet and send it to your Google Classwork and turn it in. Okay? So, just make your answer concise. Meaning, short and yet complete. Answer it in not more than 2 sentences. Meaning to say, please answer that or explain that in 1 or 2 sentences only. Okay? Again, don't forget to turn it in. Okay. Before I end up this lesson for the day, anyway, do you have any question? If there is none, I want you to leave this quotation. An organization without a healthy communication is like a tower with a weak foundation. Meaning to say, An organization needs a healthy communication. Because if there is no healthy communication in an organization, it will become weak. Similar with a tower with a weak foundation. Therefore, communication strengthens the organization. So, let us do our very best in order to maintain healthy communication among people in the organization. And that is one secret of a strong and healthy organization. Okay? With that note, thank you very much and good day and God bless us all. Thank you very much. Bye.